Om Namah Shivaya. We are continuing with the teachings of Ashtavakra Gita as interpreted by Sri Ramesh Balsekar. So the verse 1.8 now comes to King Janaka after Ashtavakra has assessed that the disciple is ripe for direct knowledge. Now Ashtavakra gives King Janaka truth in the rawest form. And he says in verse 1.8, since you have been bitten by the black snake of self-opinion that I am the doer, drink the nectar of faith in the fact that I am not the doer and be happy. You see, majority of our problems, our issues, relationship troubles stem from this very fact, which is not a fact at all, but it appears as a fact in phenomenal manifestation, that I am the doer, that I do things from my own volition. And Ramesh Balsekar always quoted the Bible. Even Ramana Maharishi quoted from the Bible, "Thy will, not mine, be done, my Lord." The deeper understanding of that is that it is not me who does things from my own volition, but things simply happen, and I am simply the unaffected witness of whatever is happening in manifestation. And the knowing of that, the pure knowledge, is freedom. And Ashtavakra here tells King Janaka, who he thinks is ready for this knowledge, is that you are not acting out of volition. If you think that you are the doer, then you will bear the load of guilt and shame on your shoulders. And you can see this in your daily living, in everyday life. Whatever you think you did, whatever you think was your action, which came out of your personal volition, that you thought of it and did something, you will always carry a load of pride, arrogance, or guilt or shame about it. But when there is this understanding that it is not I who is the doer, but things simply happen, this whole conditioning is reversed. This whole burden of guilt, shame, blame, malice, resentment, ill will, spite towards the other begins to disappear. Because then it is understood that if I am not the doer, then even the other is not the doer of their actions. So if I am not the doer, and neither is other the doer, then who is to have any resentment towards whom? Who is to hate whom? It is recognized that there is only one consciousness that powers all beings. It is the consciousness that makes things happen. And the way it makes things happen is not by following an agenda. This consciousness does not have an agenda. It is only the human mind which is divided into right and wrong, good and bad, virtue and non virtue, moral, immoral. It is the split mind which is fragmented, which is divided, that thinks in this way, that thinks that God has an agenda, that consciousness has an agenda. Therefore, out of arrogance, out of ignorance, it takes this opinion that I am the doer. And hence there is suffering. But when it is realized that I am not the doer, then Ashtavakra says, just be happy. Because then who is to take the burden of guilt or shame for so perceived my actions, when I know that nothing was truly ever my action? I will read a couple of lines by Sri Ramesh Balsekar. As long as this condition remains that I am the doer, so long as there is identification with a phenomenal object as a separate me, so long must bondage continue. This me, which is a structure, does not have any concrete existence because it is not our continuous experience. It just comes and goes. Because whenever we are performing an activity, most of the times they are happening on their own accord. And since your nature is awareness, you always know that that is the case. You exist the moment you think about yourself. The moment something happens and you say, oh, I did it, I did that. So Rameshji says, the only practice which can free man from the poison of doership is the abandonment of this identification with a particular object as a me. Such abandonment can only come through the clear and deep understanding, the faith that volition or sense of doership is merely an inference because there really is no entity to exercise it. You see, in our daily living, we react to different conditions based on our past conditioning. And when the reaction is happening, in that moment, we become the reaction. We are the reaction. There is no separate me from the reaction. The me is the reaction. And usually, in that moment, whatever reactivity or whatever is happening based on your personal conditioning, in that moment it is not a problem. The problem comes afterwards when this me comes up, when this ego comes up, which Ashtavakra here calls as the black snake. This me comes up and says, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you behave like this? Why did you behave like that? You shouldn't have done this. You should have done that. So all this should have, could have, would have, must be, must not be, all of this is the thinking mind, is the ruminating mind, is the me mind, which considers itself to be the doer. And it says, I'm unhappy and I can do something about it. And that increases the unhappiness many folds. So Ashtavakra says, have faith. Because it starts with faith. He gives Janaka the understanding because he knows that Janaka is ripe, that he's ready for the knowledge. So he says, start with the faith. Now, it is not a blind faith that you have to accept. You can verify this through your own personal experience. Every time when thinking happens, in that thinking, it is assumed that this subject I is the doer. And it is this notion, this strong notion of personal volition, that I am the doer, it is this notion that causes suffering, that causes trouble, that causes problems in a relationship, disharmony, conflict. The moment this notion is gone, I am the doer, then the next question comes up is, if I am not the doer, who is this me? Who is this me? Does this me have a concrete existence? Or is it just a conceptual thought that is also an arising in the phenomenal manifestation? And also, the next question is it separate from its source, the noumenon, the nothingness, the pure consciousness or pure awareness? Is it separate from that? And the next verse that we are taking up will clarify this. The next verse says, just as one and the same all-pervading space exists within and without a jar, so the eternal, everlasting God exists in the totality of things. So again, what Ashtavakra is saying, that God or consciousness or this animated reality in which everything is an arising is not a conditioned entity. It is the totality of things, which includes all aspects of life: good, bad, rigid, soft, flexible, inflexible. It doesn't follow the morality, the conventions of society. It is raw, it is total expression. It includes creation, it includes destruction. Therefore, one cannot say that God is a certain way. One cannot say that God is kindness. God is all things. God is the totality. God is, whatever is arising. It is only the human mind, the doer mind, the one that says, I am the doer, which is conditioned, which says things should be a certain way and should not be the other way. So what are we doing? We are limiting our vision the moment we say, I am the doer. But when I am not the doer, take it as a matter of faith to start with. I am not the doer. And investigate. And only believe when it is your personal experience. Now see, if I am not the doer, then who is this me? And if there is no me, then what is this? So Ashtavakra now says, now he's giving truth in the rawest form to King Janaka. And he says, it is all pervading consciousness. Look at this jar. Now tell me one thing. This containment, this glass containment, and the space inside it, does this containment of glass condition the space inside the jar? You see, when there is identification with the jar, it may feel as if the space inside is limited, conditioned. But the moment this jar breaks, okay, I'm not breaking the jar for real, so this is just for demonstration, because it is not even my jar. So it is my mother's jar, and I will get an earful if I break this. So just to explain the concept, now look at the space inside the jar and the space which is outside. Once this jar breaks, which means this jar is the notion that I am the doer. Once it is not there anymore, the doership, the sense of doership gone. This individuality that remains is not so solid. It still remains because that is required for life, for interaction, for human experiencing. But now identification with the individuality is not so solid because it is understood that the consciousness that powers the human organism is same for everyone. And the mind-body organism is just a costume. What is the reality is the powering consciousness which is same for everyone, just as the space within the jar and outside the jar is same. If the jar breaks, nothing happens to the space inside it. It is the space that is outside. It is indestructible. This is your essence. If I move the jar, does the space move? Now you scientifically also know that the space does not move. It remains the same. And this is the totality Ashtavakra is talking about. The space inside is same as the space outside. So to conclude, I will quote a couple of lines by Sri Ramesh Balsekar, where he says, "All phenomenal objects are merely appearances in consciousness. All there is consciousness, immanent in everything phenomenal, inasmuch as there cannot be any phenomena without consciousness. Without this space, there is no way this jar can have any experience. The space is required for the jar to manifest. Similarly, without consciousness, nothing can stand. No experience, no object in manifestation can have an existence independent of the consciousness. Everything happens in consciousness. Consciousness is the totality of all existence, of all phenomenal manifestation." And finally, to conclude, a word on faith. Rameshji says, "Such faith brings about the spontaneous and sudden understanding that I am the one subject, and the entire phenomenal manifestation is my objective expression. I am the universal consciousness within which has spontaneously arisen the totality of the phenomenal manifestation. There is no world without I. There is no you or your attributes without I. You can say, I am this, I am that, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer. You can create any identification you want to, but it is not possible without I. I is the pure existence. And that I is not different for different people. Only I am this and I am that is different. This is pure knowing. This is pure knowledge, which King Janaka is being graced with by the sage Ashtavakra. So that's it for today, and we will continue in the next lecture. Om Namah Shivaya.